Jellyfish are older than dinosaurs. They're actually so old that they predate the Cambrian explosion, an event in Earth's history when most of the major animal phyla we know today first appeared in the fossil record. But how can this be? I mean, look at jellyfish today. They seem pretty simple compared to, say, a T-Rex or even a mammal like us, so how could they have been around for so long? Well, it turns out there's more to these gelatinous blobs than meets the eye. Hi, and welcome to my channel. Jellyfish may seem simple, but there's a lot going on under their transparent bell-shaped bodies. And recent research suggests that what we think of as a jellyfish may actually be more of a whole umbrella term that covers a bunch of different kinds of animals with different evolutionary histories. So when we talk about how long jellyfish have been around, we're really talking about a whole collection of creatures, and that collection goes way back. Jellyfish have been around for at least 535 million years, which is at least as far back as the oldest known fossils of them or their relatives. But before the Cambrian explosion, life on Earth was pretty different. There were no hard-bodied animals like arthropods, mollusks, or vertebrates. So obviously early life forms like jellyfish didn't preserve well because they had no skeleton to protect them. And the few clues we do have about what life was like before the Cambrian explosion come from tiny pockets of organic matter here and there. That means our understanding of early life is incomplete, and it can be tough to say exactly when certain groups of animals showed up. For example, we don't know for sure when the first animals with true tissues like muscle and nerves appeared. So we don't know for sure when the first true jellyfish showed up either. But we do know that animals like jellyfish probably weren't the first complex life forms. That title likely belongs to the comb jellies. These free-floating iridescent creatures are technically called ctenophores, and they're closely related to jellyfish, and they seem to have been around since at least the late Ediacaran period, if not before. In other words, they predate the Cambrian explosion by at least 10 million years. This poses something of a problem for our understanding of how animals work. See, all animals are thought to have descended from a common ancestor, the Urmetazoan, and we think this critter was the first multicellular organism whose cells were organized into true tissues. But the Urmetazoan was probably also a lot like modern-day comb jellies or jellyfish. It floated around in the ocean using its tentacles to capture prey, and despite their simple body plan, it would have been pretty sophisticated. For example, it would have needed a nervous system to coordinate its movements and senses, along with some kind of structure to maintain its shape and keep it afloat. So if comb jellies really did appear 10 million years before the Cambrian explosion, that means the Urmetazoan could have appeared much earlier, possibly during the Ediacaran period. And that means either the entire animal kingdom underwent a massive diversification much earlier than we thought, or the fossil record has some serious gaps. But more recent research suggests that there's another explanation. Maybe the common ancestor of all animals wasn't quite as complex as we thought it was. A 2022 study of the genome of a moon jelly may have found the reason why. Moon jellies are a type of Scyphozoan, and until recently scientists considered Scyphozoans to be the closest living relatives of the Urmetazoan. But the results of this new genetic study suggested that they aren't that closely related after all. Instead, it turns out that the group containing both moon jellies and their close relatives diverged from other animals much later than expected, somewhere between 567 and 581 million years ago. That means the last common ancestor of all animals could have been much simpler than we thought. In other words, maybe it was basically just a giant single cell with some rudimentary tissues that looked a bit like a blob. So, although we tend to think of jellyfish as fairly simple creatures, their evolutionary history has been anything but. And as researchers continue to investigate the origins of animals, they may turn out to be even older and more complex than we ever imagined. Thanks again to Brilliant for sponsoring this episode, and thank you for watching.